Welcome to the Frozen Layer podcast, brought to you by ZenTek Consultants CA, where we will discuss all things related to the CAD, BIM, and construction markets, with a little humor thrown in for good measure. I'm your host, Steve Fahey. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to the Frozen Layer. Our goal with the Frozen Layer is to share valuable information that our CAD, BIM, and construction clients will find useful and help them increase productivity, just like freezing a layer in CAD. I'm pleased to have David Mills joining me today. David has an extensive background implementing and supporting technology in the construction management field. He has written numerous articles and blogs and delivers training on Bluebeam, Procore, Excel. David, welcome to the Frozen Layer podcast.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Beautiful sunny day here in Canada and Halifax, so I'm going to take it.
I got cloudy weather, but it was warm this morning when I took my dog for a walk, so you can't have the best of both worlds, especially around this time of the year.
Yeah, you take what they throw at you. So, got a couple questions for you, David. First one, you worked in the construction industry prior to joining ZenTek. For our listeners who haven't dealt with you yet or don't know you, could you give them an overview of your experience in the industry and the path that led you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've been within the construction industry for nearly a decade now. I actually started off as architectural engineering in my university days. Realized after I got a job working at a general contractor, just as an internship as an estimator, I really like construction as a whole a lot more than sitting at a desk, sitting at a cubicle all day and doing some design work. I really like construction, and it really helped me be a better person throughout. So originally, again, I started off as an estimator, became a project engineer at that same company when I was close to graduating. And then I went out to a new company to be a field engineer and be out in the field. And that's where I would say my expertise and kind of my outlook on the world changed significantly. I got a lot of training, but one of the biggest things I got a hold of was talking with the subcontractors, talking with the field individuals about what their shortfalls are and kind of what they struggle with. Now, all the contractors I work with, they can build a great wall, they install great tile, they do a great job doing, what they're subcontracted to do. However, one thing they struggled with, and we had to use Procore at this previous company, they had to struggle to adapt to any type of new technology, within our industry. And that was kind of an eye-opener to me, being a little bit younger. Because I was born and raised on technology. I love it. It saved a lot of my time. But these individuals, they didn't really learn that. They didn't have the training. They didn't have the patience or time. So I would actually sit down and train them a little bit, and they were really appreciative of it. And they would train me how to do things. Install again various different parts of a building. One of the projects I worked on, the first one I was out in the field, I actually installed one of everything, ranging from tying some rebar and tying that, all the way to installing some tile, putting some wallpaper up or wall covering, ceiling tile. I did everything on that building. At least one time, I spent 1 hour doing everything.
And it's still standing?
They were both appreciative of that. No. No, I'm kidding. That's still strong. It's been open for 5 years now, so I drive by it every now and then when I go over to Wisconsin. But yeah, it's a nice building to have on the resume.
Yeah, no, it's fun when you get involved in a project. I remember back in the early 90s, there was an architectural firm that won a contract to redesign a local mall, and they didn't know how to use AutoCAD, so they brought me their designs, and I created the CAD file for them. So every time you would go to the mall and walk around and you would see the changes you made, you felt like you were a little piece of it. Even though you didn't do the design or do the major portion of it, you were involved, and it gives you a little bit of a good feeling.
Yeah, I love at least being involved in my local community, building buildings. just because, again, you get to drive by them every day. And yeah, it was pretty stressful, perhaps during the construction process. However, once it gets all done and it's open for business, and you hear about happy customers and happy employees or whoever took control of that building, it really does give you a better outlook on life, and really appreciative of kind of what most of us do for a day.
Yeah, I had I did design one building that got built in Halifax. It was around a 15,000 square foot mixed use. It was office space in one wing and commercial sales and maintenance on the other wing. And the building was used for about 25 years before the land and the park became too valuable for retail, and it was bought up and torn down and turned into a large retail building instead. So, but it was nice when it was there to know that you had a hand in it. So. Quickly, the construction field has changed a lot over the years, and technology is being used in new and creative ways. Through your different career paths, what did you find most difficult related to technology being introduced to the construction marketplace?
Um, just how old school everything was and still is, and how people are taught. Um, when I was going over teaching these subcontractors things about Procore or Bluebeam or anything else regarding their position, they never got any formal education from their company.
Yeah.
They only got some pre-recorded 15-minute video, or even maybe a whole course outline that could have been 20, 30 hours, but it's somebody talking very boring, and there is nothing to follow along with.
Yeah.
So it was very, I'll be honest, boring for them. These guys are out in the field every single day. They're very good with their hands. Them sitting down at a computer for 20 hours watching videos back to back. I don't wish that upon anybody. That's just it's just awful at the end of the day. And that was, I would say, at least 98% of the people I talked with that were having struggles with. Again, it wasn't just Procore; it was the other competitors of Procore. So it wasn't the software; it was how they were being trained.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that our field staff, we can't build a building without them. Our subcontractors, our superintendents, we could design all the buildings we want. We could bid out all the buildings we want. We could plan everything out and do a nice schedule. But if you don't have anyone to actually build a building, and with the software, it makes their job easier. And I don't think a lot of them realize that, because, again, they just didn't have that proper training, that proper sit-down discussion. Be like, Procore, you could have all your drawings up, and you don't need to walk back to your office trailer, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, far more efficient when you have something set up properly and get trained how to maximize the use of it. Working in the industry, you have dealt with everyone from young people with limited work experience to people with 40 plus years of experience. With the age demographic changing in the construction industry, have you noticed any difference in how receptive people are to learning new technology?
A little bit, I'll be honest. Now, one of the big kind of myths that we have been kind of taught, at least ever since I was young, is that the younger generations, and I'm Gen Z, I was born in 96, for all of those who don't know me. So I'm right on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. I more identify with a millennial than I do a Gen Z. However, we were told that, younger individuals were going to be really computer savvy. That is not the case. I just recently read a Forbes article on it, and there's a few other major articles and studies on it, if anyone is curious, is that Gen Z and, whatever the next generation is going to be called, they probably already have a name. I'm not sure what it is yet. They're not as tech savvy as we originally had hoped. And again, I've trained people who are just 2 or 3 years younger than me. And what I was even taught in high school and middle school, even basic keyboard typing skills. Some of you who may be listening to this may have taken a typewriter course. Um, they don't. Some schools don't even teach that anymore. At least a keyboard.
Yeah.
Obviously, typewriters are a thing of the past. But keyboard and typing skills are still, a daily activity. Who every single person in the world does. They spend at least an hour on their computer a day, most likely. At least in the U.S. and Canada,
Yeah.
doing anything. Um, you may not need to be on a computer 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week like you or I, but there is still one aspect of computer knowledge that they need to have. So that's kind of just one thing I've noticed. And a lot of older people who I've worked with, who have been in the industry for 40 years, um, some of them have better computer literacy than a 20-year-old right now, which is it was definitely shocking to me when I was teaching some individuals Procore, Excel, even just how to navigate and do a folder structure on Windows.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting. I think just goes to show that, age is not an indicator when it comes to having an interest in learning technology. There are different people learn in different capacities and have different desires to learn. So it's we have to keep an open mind on that.
Yeah, one thing I always try to, when I'm doing all my classes, I do like to know who's in there, or especially if I'm doing one-on-one training, because I like to give specific examples of that person's career choice, that person's, another example that person may use day to day, whatever it may be, to help them understand that topic for that class.
Okay, excellent. We're going to take a quick break for a commercial, and we'll be right back. Today's Frozen Layer podcast is being brought to you by our ZenTek Training Division. ZenTek has a variety of training options available, from public courses, private group courses, on-demand courses, as well as custom courses to meet all your design needs. We offer training in Bluebeam, Autodesk, Procore, and BricsCAD, with options from beginner through to advanced. To learn more, visit our website, ZenTekConsultants.net, or give us a call, 866-824-4459, or you can email sales@ZenTekConsultants.net. ZenTek Consultants CA for all your technology consulting needs. And we're back. David, one thing that we all hear about and we know is important is time management. It's important in our industry and it can be critical in the construction industry. What helpful hints have you learned over the years that can help everyone in their day-to-day tasks?
Sit down. This is where the tip starts. Sit down and just think about or write down whatever you want to do about all these simple tasks. And it may only take 1 minute. The task may only take 1 minute, especially if they are repetitive, simple tasks. Write them all down and see if you can automate them some way or another. One thing I used to do when I was an intern was I had to send out about 30 to 35 different emails, all with different PMs or project managers, different project engineers, different individuals on every single email. And I had to attach different reports as well. So I think we could all agree, attaching some attachments to an email and typing in some, email addresses, that's easy. Doing it 35 times and having them all slightly different, well, that starts to get a little bit more tedious, right? You start to have that opportunity for mistake. So I started, after about 6 months of doing that, I started a research. Like, there's got to be some way or something else. And the company that I worked for, they are very old school, and they still are old school to this day. I know softwares like Procore and other softwares out there have that, but we only really had Microsoft the Microsoft suite for the most part. So after some research, I learned some things about Excel. Excel is an incredibly powerful program for anyone who doesn't know about it. And even the estimators or anyone who's listening to this call who uses Excel on a daily basis, chances are you still only have scratched just the surface. So what I set up was an Excel sheet with everyone who I needed to email in a nice column and in rows and everything. The locations of the attachments, and just a vague message saying, here you go, here's your report for this week. So set up some macros, and what it eventually did was when I would click on each project, I had a macro button, and it would send an email with the attachments with who it was going to. And it only took about a couple minutes, right? Total. We got it down from about 4 hours, 5 hours, down to about 30 minutes. That's a big jump in saving my time every single week. So that's 3.5 hours alone right there.
That's huge.
Exactly. And that's an every week thing. That's what I'm talking about. If you can find something like that, then you're going to be just happier. And like I said, that stuff's easy. That stuff is easy. I wasn't complaining about the work being hard. It was that tedious stuff. About another several months go by, and I'm like, instead of 30 minutes, I bet you I could get this down even farther. So instead of doing 35 different clicks for a project and doing some manual stuff, I got it all done, automated, entirely. Would send out all emails with a click of one button. You had to do some setup ahead of time. But what took originally 4 to 5 hours, I got it down to less than a minute.
That's crazy.
And every time there was a new project, it only took about 15 seconds to set up. And it was a one-time setup for that entire project. If you needed to change out an email, if there was a new superintendent, new PM, or somebody else needed to be copied on, it was a very easy thing that anyone in our office can do. I'm proud to say that they actually still use that to this day to email a lot of reports. Something simple, but just alone that has probably saved well over 600 hours. Since I've incorporated that.
And that's a big thing now, as we all know. One of the major stresses on the construction industry right now is not enough people are entering the trade skill education and to refill the people that are leaving the market. So finding efficiencies and increasing productivity is huge.
And there's a lot. It could be, again, something pretty advanced. I spent probably between the research and the final version of it taking, just a minute or so, I probably spent a total of 10 hours of my time doing that. But my time that I spent doing that kind of project, the savings were almost exponential. Now, I'm not saying everyone can get something like that. That's I would say out of the ordinary example, but something that is 4 hours, getting it down to 2 hours is still a huge improvement.
Oh yeah,
huge improvement.
Yeah, makes a big difference in somebody's work week for sure. And now, if you can do something that's saving 2 or 3 hours a week, and you have 10 employees, that's equivalent of having a part-time employee for 20 hours a week.
Exactly. And when I try to explain that, or even purchasing of software that's better, like again, going from Adobe Acrobat to Bluebeam, that license is a couple $100 a month, or not a month, a year. But some of the tools in there, like the automation of page labels, that took me an hour to do for a 100-page set, down to a couple minutes, 5 minutes each time.
Yeah, pays for the software pretty quickly.
Yep, Bluebeam, Procore, Excel, a lot of the other offerings that we have on our site. And there are others that you and I probably don't even know about. That do have that quick return on investment. And we really, in the construction industry, need to start taking more notice of that and to really start saving our time and start improving our efficiency in the office a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. As we've discussed, your background has been a unique mix of working in the industry and receiving training, and now being an instructor delivering the training provides you with insight to both sides of the table. What tips do you have related to learning new software?
Follow along exactly. Again, I brought this up earlier. A lot of the times when we've been uh, given a task to learn a program, um, the program, provider or manufacturer, whoever it may be, has some good videos on their website, but it's never enough. So follow along with the course, put the video, pre-recording, whatever it is, on another monitor, and that's going to be the key right there. And then have the software you are learning, like Bluebeam, for example, on your primary monitor. That way you can see, hey, this is where I'm clicking. I should be clicking right there as well. And you could follow along step by step with every single process that the instructor is doing, I should say. Um, and it's just going to make it easier for you. I talk about, I don't have a formal education in teaching people. Again, I come from the construction industry, very rough around the edges. And some of my classes do incorporate some of those rough around the edges conversations or topics or just discussions. And I like to bring up what is known as or at least one thing I've learned before is about the learning pyramid. Um, if you don't know what that is, to anyone listening, just do a quick Google on it. It's basically the steps it takes to understand a topic. So at the very top, if you just read about it, you only get about 10% understanding of it. And as you go down the pyramid and do other tasks such as teaching it or writing an article about it, you start to get a more understanding about it. Until you are a teacher or educator of that, you're going to be at about a 95%. So again, learning a new software, follow along, do exactly what that person is doing. And then when you have your own free time or whatever it is, when you are learning that software, start to engage it outside of that class a little bit. Start to mess around with it a little bit more and do things. Hey, I know he said we're going to talk about this next week. Let's look at it. Let's investigate it a little bit ahead of time so I could ask some questions and start engaging in it.
Yeah, I think another thing when I was younger and learning a lot of software, what I found is that just try not to be afraid of it. Just jump in and
Yep.
start using it and try to get the most out of the product.
Also, if you're going to go into it being angry and like, oh, I hate learning new software, you're just going to have a bad time. Try to be optimistic about it. At the end of the day, most software, and I say most because there are some things that do make our jobs harder for no reason at all. Some softwares out there that we probably all using every single day. But go into it with an open mind. Think it's a positive. It's a positive, or you're just going to have a bad time.
Yeah, makes it harder for sure. So one word that you'll hear me use a lot is efficiency, and really like to focus on that. I use it a lot because it's something we focus on when we help our clients. We covered a lot of material here today. I would like to end with a final thought from you. Do you have any suggestions that will help our audience improve their workflow and become more efficient?
The easiest tip is to buy a secondary monitor. Monitors, especially after the COVID, pandemic, monitors are pretty available again and they're cheap again. I'm surprised in 2023 that there are people who are on a computer for more than 10 hours a week still using a single monitor or just their laptop monitor. A simple 24-inch 1080p monitor costs like 100 or 120 bucks. And there have been like Harvard and Yale studies that on average that improves your workflow having that second monitor by 50 to 60% at times.
Yeah.
Now when you're working 2,000 hours in a year and you've been doing one monitor for 2,000 hours in a year, that means you're probably going to get close to 3,000 hours worth of work done if you have that second monitor. You're just going to be so much more efficient. You're going to just be happier. It does take a couple hours to get used to, but really once you spend a week getting used to two monitors and navigating, you're just going to be happier overall. Again, it's the quickest investment. It doesn't require really any formal training. The only thing it requires is a little bit extra power and an HDMI cord.
Yeah. I'll let you know, not to date myself, but I did have a dual monitor set up before you were born. I had my 20-inch CRT Mitsubishi large screen, and then I had my monochrome side screen. And back in those days, you could shuffle your commands off to the monochrome side screen and have your 20-inch screen just for drawing. So it was a huge productivity gain. So I agree with your overview of having more screen space.
And for anyone thinking like, oh, what about 6 screens? That'll be 300%. Unfortunately, you start to get some diminishing returns after the second screen. And if you go somebody who is not the most computer literate and give them 3 screens, a little fun fact, most of the time they'll actually be performing less work than if they just had 1 screen, because they just get overwhelmed. They spend more time shuffling screens around. I have 3 screens, but I'm also good with computers and technology.
Yep.
Again, I spend 40 plus hours on a computer screen a week. Definitely, if you are pretty good with computers, maybe get that 3rd screen. But again, for the most part, 2 screens, that should be a standard for anyone who does any type of computer work at all.
Yeah, my young fella, he's 14. He has 3 screens in his setup in his room, and he loves it. For me, I have the laptop screen, and I have a 34-inch widescreen that I can panel. So for most of the day, I use it as a single screen, but when I need to have it as a dual screen, then I can get to the 3 panels if I need it.
Or yeah, as you said, you maybe not even 2 monitors, but if you have one of those ultra wide ones, that kind of counts as 2 monitors. Yeah. If you can, get used to snapping the windows properly.
Yep. Yeah. So that's what I have, and it works pretty well. So, well, David, I would like to thank you very much for joining me today on the Frozen Layer. It was a great conversation.
Anytime.
I enjoyed having you. And until next time, keep freezing those layers.